funny enough, I used to hate yoga. Like, I hated it. I was the person who was in the back of the class because my mom dragged me to yoga, and I would be in child's pose, and I was like, this is bull crap. It wasn't until I was 15, I was in the Cayman Islands, and I was practicing with this teacher who had a shaved head. She was like a future version of myself that I was seeing for the first time, being like, whoa, I want to be that. Not just how she looked, but actually how she showed up, like her energy, her presence. And I took her yoga class, and it was the first time that I had done a yoga class where I was like, that is yoga. And it was like she was not just teaching us asanas and postures, but there was poetry. And it felt like poetry in motion. And so in that experience, I was like, I want that again. And I want to feel that again. And I want to be able to share that one day with other people. At 18 is when I actually started to meditate heavily, and it became a part of my routine. Honestly, I started it because I was so fed up with life and I was in a really dark place. And when I started to meditate, that was the first time that I had felt that feeling again that I experienced in this yoga class when I was 15. And it was this coming home to myself of like, oh, that's that feeling of union, which, yoga means to unite or to yoke.
This is the Space Whispering Podcast with Rainy. On this episode, we have Hannah Singer. She is empowering individuals to alchemize their life through yoga, somatics, and cyclical living. We talk about how she hated yoga and met someone when she was 15 that embodied the future versions she saw herself to be. This week on Instagram, I posted a carousel. What is your fun? Because I realized people, if we're having too much fun, it's like, what are you doing for work? Why are you so happy? You should do this and this and this. And that's what I have encountered personally. But the thing is, like, why I mentioned what is your fun and what it means to me as a holistic designer, that fun isn't an escape. It's a sacred portal to your authentic self. The spaces you surround yourself, the spaces you create should whisper this wisdom back to you. And I feel like Hannah embodies fun. Like everything, how she shows up, how she speaks. She's speaking from a place of knowing thyself, but also not knowing thyself. And living in that in-between of knowing and not knowing, I think that's fun. That's fun. Please follow her Instagram. I think you would be inspired daily. I know what it takes to be present and showing up every day and sharing that love publicly. That's triple. I admire Hannah for doing that, for showing up for herself, showing up for her work, and showing up to show you that there is a possibility of living a sacred, fun life. At the Space Whispering Podcast, we're building a community of soulful whisperers and creators. Join us by subscribing, leaving a review, and following along on social media. And if you're ready to transform your spaces into something authentically you, and if this episode inspired you, imagine the world we can create together. Book your discovery session with me. Let's keep creating spaces that feed your soul, and let's whisper together. Besitos. Talk to you soon. Hello. Hola, Hannah.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great today. Some good energy over here.
Yeah, I can feel it. Your energy is so expansive.
Oh.
Where are you from? Where are you today? Where are you tuning in today? Yeah.
So I am actually tuning in from where I am from. So I am in the Chicagoland area. I grew up here and I am back here right now.
Beautiful. How does it feel to be back?
It's good. I think I've had quite an adventure, and I'm still on that adventure, but it feels nice. I actually am with my parents, so I have the opportunity of kind of living in this little commune of my own family, which obviously brings excitement, and it also brings a lot of yeah, interesting conversations and challenge as well. So it's fun to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, w- I mean, I've come to realize that there's a reason why we have our family, right?
Mm,
And they are our mirrors as much as we are their mirrors. And so having that reflection with someone that has met you in different stages of your life,
mm-hmm,
I think it's tumultuous in a way and chaotic. And in another way,
mm-hmm,
it's like, look at the person I can be. Look at the person I am with
mm.
them. And so it's like it breaks you in a way, and at the same time you realize like you're capable of so much.
Yeah, there's a beautiful quote. That was beautifully said, by the way. But
Thank
there's
you.
a really good quote by Ram Dass, and he says that if you want to be enlightened, go spend a week with your family. And I love that so much because I think, younger Hannah would have been like, I could never live with my parents. I could never move back in. Like all of, just my more stubborn self who was very like closed off to life. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. There's so many, beautiful benefits. And your family really does make you have to look at yourself, right? Because not everything that they say about you or to you is necessarily true, but it is really fun because they make you challenged, right? Like you have to challenge yourself in the sense of, okay, how am I showing up in relation to the people that care about me the most and the people that support me the most? So it definitely is it's a fun experience. Yeah.
Yes. I so Hannah, your name. How was it growing up with your name, and does it have a meaning for you?
Oh, I love that. I've never been asked that before. So I actually used to hate my name, funny enough. Yeah, I really was mad at my mom. I'm like, why didn't you give me some cool name, that had this like deep found meaning and whatnot? And she wanted people to be able to pronounce my name because for her name's Mina, and people would always mispronounce her name or make fun of it and whatnot. And so she was like, I just want you to have a very easy name. And now that I've, grown up with this name and I've had this name, I have done research on what it means and, the energy behind it, and not just studying it through one lens, but looking at it through like, I don't know, multiple different lenses. And essentially it means grace or compassion. And I really love that because I think as I've gotten older, I've actually grown into that more and more. And I also love how there's this like balance to it, right? Having two of each letter in my name has some sort of like symmetry or harmony. And that's also intertwined in the meaning, but also very much connected to who I am. I'm a Libra, so Libra sun. So I love balance and harmony and striving for this equanimity. So I like that it's represented in my name. I think it's really cute.
Yeah. How is it when you travel to other countries with your name?
Typically, so I am Italian, and like my nonni or my grandparents, they're often like Anna. So it has more of like an Anna sound, especially in Italy. Like all my Italian friends, none of them say ha-na. It's always Anna. So I like that. It kind of like changes. And I feel like for the most part, yeah, I just love that every, wherever I've traveled to in the world, whether it be in, America or beyond, like there's just a slight different pronunciation, depending on, where people are from. So I've never really had like problems with it outside of people being like calling me Anna because they don't hear the H in it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I know because in Spanish the H is silent. So
Mm,
like if someone that doesn't know, right, English or doesn't know the that name would say Anna. Yeah.
yeah.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful name.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yours is too. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you. Um the pronunciation in English, rainy day, was a friend in high school. And I am forever grateful for him because that has allowed me to create like in the way of like how I show up and also how I present myself, like rainy
Hmm.
day, and it just makes it fun. So I love
Yeah,
that.
no, it's super cool. I feel like it's such a unique name. You never see people one spelling it rainy with an H and a Y. I feel like it's just very eccentric and fun. So it very much I feel like matches that, I don't know, inspirational energy that you bring.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I I was so attracted to you from before, but when you were you had a video in your Instagram, and you had a video of you like expressing your gratitude that you graduated from yoga
Hmm.
and that you've always wanted this, and to see that and follow you, you know, and seeing the version of you today and then seeing that version of you was like so impactful.
Hmm.
But also the other reason was because I felt happy when I did a yoga teacher training as well, in
Hmm.
Costa Rica. It's like I had a different intention when I graduated or when I
Hmm.
took the course, but it seemed you had a completely different one. And I just want to hear your story behind that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get
Yeah.
into it. There's a lot, but funny enough, I used to hate yoga. Like I hated it. I was the person who was in the back of the class because my mom dragged me to yoga and I would be in child's pose and I was like, this is bull crap. Like I just totally didn't get why people were practicing it. And it wasn't until I was 15, I was in the Cayman Islands and I was practicing with this teacher who had a shaved head. She was like a future version of myself that I was seeing for the first time, being like, whoa, I want to be that. Not just how she looked, but actually how she showed up, like her energy, her presence. And I took her yoga class, and it was the first time that I had done a yoga class where I was like, oh, that is yoga. And it was like she was not just teaching us asanas and postures, but there was poetry and it felt like poetry in motion. And so in that experience, I was like, I want that again. And I want to feel that again. And I want to be able to share that one day with other people. And so after that, it was like ingrained in my head, I'm going to become a yoga teacher. But I still hated yoga because when I practiced in the West, it felt so different. All the studios I was going to and the teachers I'd practiced with, I had tried Bikram yoga, I tried Vinyasa yoga, I tried Hatha, I tried Yin. I had tried every form of yoga, but felt so disconnected. And really, up until I was 18 years old, I had this like battle of how do I want to be this yoga teacher really bad, but I also am struggling accessing yoga within myself fully in, you know, the Western world. And so at 18 is when I actually started to meditate heavily and it became a part of my routine. It honestly, I started it because I was so fed up with life and I was in a really dark place. And when I started to meditate, that was the first time that I had felt that feeling again that I experienced in this yoga class when I was 15. And it was this coming home to myself of like, oh, that's that feeling of union, which, you know, yoga means to unite or to yoke. And it was that experience, but on a totally different level because I wasn't moving my body. I was just sitting and being with everything. And so I kept meditating. And it was that year that I was studying dance in school, and my program at school was like, hey, you can become a yoga teacher with us over the summer if that's something you're interested in. And I was like, oh, this is divine timing. The pandemic ended up happening a few months after that. So my yoga program that I was supposed to go into was about to cancel. And then they decided to make it all online. And this was the first time any of these teachers, any of this studio in general was putting everything online. And we were kind of like the test bunnies for it in a way. And I was like, I'm still going to do it. And it was the most profound 6 weeks of my life. And that's where that video that you saw, that start of that video was the graduation day of my training. I did all of that in my room for 6 weeks, almost 7 hours a day, online with this group, talking about yoga, living yoga. Our heads were in our screens, just experiencing yoga for the first time through this absolutely new lens of the online sphere. So it was extremely transformative. One, because the teachers who, guided us had this incredible ability to hold so much space and to not only hold that space, but to direct profound energy through a screen. And that takes a lot of skill and a lot of years of living your yoga, which they had been. So it was, to say the least, one of the most incredible experiences. And every single person, if you asked every single person in that training what their experience was, it would be completely different from one person to the next, because we were all experiencing the pandemic differently. So it was a lot of energy at that time. And for me, it was healing. For me, it was a spiritual awakening. For me, it was the first time that I actually saw the worlds bridge together of I want this thing and I want to be this thing, but yet I'm not sure if I'm there or how to get there. And those worlds came in together and it was magical.
Yes, I understand. I feel like I have the before yoga and the after yoga in my life. And so I completely understand. And one of the intentions, at least for me, was about the body. So it was a little bit opposite because I always felt shame in the sense of I was good at yoga, but it was because it was my private practice. And for me to be able to show it to more people or even teach it was something completely different.
I was going to say that most of the time too, it's like interesting how you said it. I'm, felt good at yoga, because I think that's often, people who are going into trainings want to get good at yoga, right? But that journey and that practice, what I realized really fast when I was training and even now, is that there is no being good at it. And as much as we want to try to be good at things, especially myself, like I feel like I have a perfectionist kind of tendency that I've worked through a lot. I have often felt that same experience. Like I want to be good at this thing. I want to be a good yoga teacher. I want to be a good yogi. I want to be a good student. And at the end of the day, there is no being good at yoga. There just is showing up and practicing in your body, in your mind, in your breath, exactly as you are, day in and day out. And that is the being good, right?
Yeah. And then that's exactly what I meant when I said that, because it was like I tried many things. And so, as well, when I was very young, my mom used to practice yoga at home, and I would see her in an inversion, and I always like admire her doing that, right? And I always looked at her, and then the breath as well, how she used the breath, and then she stopped. And at the gym, I used to go, but I was never passionate about really going to the gym. But when I found yoga, that's where I felt, wow, my body feels good doing this. And so when I say good, I love that you said that, but it is true. It's not like, oh, I can do this or that. It's just that I feel good when I'm doing it. Like I can, tune out the people around me and like really allow myself to be.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That really is the practice, right? Like, can we access calm? Can we access the feeling good? Sometimes the journey to get there isn't always so calm or doesn't always feel so good, especially if you're in like a Ashtanga practice or Bikram practice. But eventually there is that point in the practice where it's like, or even the challenge can feel good. So I love that.
So tell me a little bit about your bridge that you said that before, you felt like you were here and you wanted to be here. And during that, basically that shorten. So like
Yeah.
collapsing the river, I was going to say the river, collapsing the bridge.
Yeah. I feel like there's this mantra. I honestly don't remember where I heard it, but it's super simple. Fall in love with the gap between who you are now and who you are becoming, or where you are now and where you are going. Something along those lines. And I love that because I think that's exactly what I did in that time. I remember I was in a class in high school, and my teacher would bring in these Reiki masters and yoga teachers and spiritual healers and mediums and all this stuff. And I was like, this is baloney. Totally didn't believe in it. And it was when I really like let myself surrender all of these ideologies that I thought I believed and really gave space for myself to just be in life exactly where I was, right? I wasn't a yoga teacher yet. I was still in this like limbo space, but yet I allowed myself to be there. And because I did, when it came time to study yoga, when it came time to go deep into the practice, I was completely open. I was like a channel where the information was just soaking up inside of me and flowing. And I think that has a big part in why I had such a deep experience, because I wasn't going into it with, I want to get this thing out of it necessarily. It was, I am ready to receive. And I think that really stayed with me throughout the entire training, is this surrender and this ability to just receive, knowing that that information would make sense in my brain at some point, but more than that, it made sense in my body. And so that was my journey of kind of bridging the worlds together, was really underlined by, how am I open? Can I remain open? And trusting of my path and my timing, knowing that I will get there and I will be a yoga teacher, and it's going to happen in its own timing, not necessarily maybe the timing that I had mapped out for me.
Yeah. And another thing is like, what helps you, or not help you, but maybe what was the shift or the change in your mind of like how you show up today and how clear you are with,
Mm.
with your beliefs, and maybe talking about beliefs, what, like, how do you, because there's so much information out there too, but you
Mm-hmm.
show up in a way that you feel confident and certain. And
Mm.
so, yeah.
Yes, and I'm laughing because I'm like, yes, and the big and there is, I am confident, absolutely, and I have a lot of beliefs that I move from those beliefs quite often. And I also feel like I don't know anything, right? Like, I know nothing. And I think that, that understanding of like, I can have a sense of confidence and assuredness and awareness of myself because I've practiced svadhyaya, which in yoga is self-study, right? I've studied the heck out of myself, and I still am. And I continue to feel like I know nothing, and not in a way of like degrading myself, of like, you don't know anything, right? But every time I think I know something, it changes. I was vegan for almost 7 years. That changed, right? And I thought I was going to be vegan for the rest of my life. And it could be those small things or the big things. I thought I wanted to live in one place, and then it ended up being the other. I thought my life was going to look very different if you talk to my younger self versus the self that I am now. I thought that I was straight for 21 years of my life. I'm also bisexual. Didn't know that for the first 21 years of my life, right? So I think what I mean when I say yes, and is like, absolutely, I am confident, and I have studied myself. I have studied myself in relationship to other people, and I know nothing, because every time I think I know something, that something changes. And that's when I come back to this idea of just being really open to life, because it's going to change. And the beliefs that I have now, I honestly don't know if I'm going to have them a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. And I think that's like the first time in my life where I've been able to communicate that and be like, that's kind of dope. Like, that's kind of cool that 5 years from now, I don't know what I'm going to believe in, or who I'm going to be, or how I'm going to look. And that to me is actually really freaking beautiful. And I think younger me would have been like, no, I believe this thing. I am this way. I am this person. And now I just think that's bullshit, And I don't think it's bullshit to have beliefs. Of course, I have beliefs, and I move through life through the lens of what I believe and what I value. And I'm also really aware that all of that could change in the snap of a finger. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, but that's exactly where I think I am right now in relationship to my own beliefs.
In a way, it feels like you allow yourself to explore that and to be open, but then there's something that keeps you grounded and keeps you clear. And so, do you know what that is that helps you not feel too disoriented and like, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? And like having these questions or doubts about that future you just mentioned.
Yeah. It's structured freedom for me, right? Like, it's something where I have a lot of structure in my life, the structure of where I am at right now, right? I know that I am right here in the Chicagoland area, that I'm teaching yoga here right now, that I have all these different jobs that I'm doing that are all over. I know that I have a foundation, right? And that foundation is, yes, inside and out. Physically around me, I have a foundation. And then inside of me, I have a structure and a foundation of how I show up in the world, of how I, move throughout my day to day. I have this very concrete sense of self. And that has come through with studying yoga, with studying myself, knowing myself, learning myself, unlearning myself, learning myself again, right? So that has developed over time. Confidence, I've really trained in my life. And the freedom part of that is that I really get to color my life the way that I want. So I like to think of it as like a coloring book. Like, we have structure and we draw that structure for ourselves. It's not given to us. Maybe some ways it is, but I draw my structure of how I am living my life, and then I fill it in. I color it in with who I am and what I want to do and where I want to go. And that's, I think, where the clarity comes through, because there's so many times where I felt so unclear of like, what am I doing? Right? Where am I going? And often I think that is where we exist the most, right? We are in the space between, the liminal space of life, more than we are in the black and white of, I'm here and I'm there. We exist in the gray space more often than not. So I think because I've accepted that, while building this structure, while coloring in, knowing that that structure is going to change and that color is going to change, that has allowed me to develop a sense of clarity, because I just keep going. I just keep doing my life. I just keep showing up, knowing that we call it abhyasa in yoga. Abhyasa is the practice of consistent, committed action. I'm showing up every single day for my practice, for my sadhana, and it's going to look different every single day. I'm going to feel different every single day, but I keep showing up for it. And over time, that consistent effort is what yields stillness in the mind, is what yields calm in the mind and in the body. So that's kind of how I look at my life, through that more yogic lens of, okay, I don't have life figured out. I never will. But the foundation of where I'm at right now, the consistent practice, is what builds and trains the confidence, the clarity, the compassion, and the space to really enjoy life and not just survive through it.
Yeah. Because in such a short amount of time, you keep transforming, you keep living so much, and you keep shifting. And it takes years for people to shift in the way you're shifting in such, again, like a short gap. you keep collapsing timelines in a way. And I
Yes.
love how you said architect, like it's very architectural the way you said concrete
Mm.
structure, column, drawing in the lines. Yeah, it's very beautiful the way you express yourself. So thank you for that. I am curious how you show up in your practice daily, but
Mm-hmm.
and that consistency, but as well, like how do you give yourself to flow? Because as women, right, when you have your menstrual or the
Mm-hmm.
phases or every week we're different because of our hormones. And so I don't know if you have encountered that in your practice, or you're so tuned with your body that kind of flows naturally.
It definitely doesn't flow naturally. And I think that's because not at fault of myself, to be honest. I think that's at fault of our society. That we do live in a more masculine centered world where we've been taught to hustle and to keep going and to train hard and train all the time, and whether that's for work or for physical movement or for practice, whatever. So it's not something that has necessarily come naturally. I think it probably would have if I had the container for it to, and I didn't, as most of us don't and haven't had, and I've built it. So I studied menstrual cycle coaching this last year, and that was huge for me because I was able to not only step into the seat of a guide through that lens, but I guided myself through that journey of cyclical living. And that's become a huge part of how I do my work, of how I move my body, all of it. So that's it, it absolutely is very much integrated into my personal practice and into just how I show up as a human. My language changes vastly around my cycle, the way that I speak to myself. And I can, share an example of even just right now. So I am in like the early stages of my luteal phase. And this is the phase where it's like our inner autumn and our body starts to kind of slow down. It's like we're shedding, we're rebirthing, we're starting to detox, we're starting the process of detoxification. And often this is when people have like PMS symptoms or, um, you know, whenever we experience maybe deeper emotional changes and big hormonal shifts. Um, and with that, I have learned through many months of cycle syncing and cyclical living that this can be a really beautiful and transformative phase if we allow ourselves to be in it. Often the reason why we experience suffering around, these different phases or around our personal practice in the phases is because we're resisting that phase instead of going deeper into it. And so right now, being in the luteal part of my cycle, I'm really entering that phase right now. I can tell that my mind is just slightly, it's like slightly going from this like high vibrational positive frequency to just a slightly lower one. And it's not necessarily a negative frequency, but it's a calmer, more grounded frequency of like, let's slow down. And what can happen is the mind can go into that negative state of like self doubt and negative self talk and all of that. And I just simply don't trust the quality of my mind. I don't. I'm like, okay, I'm entering this phase. My thoughts might not always be butterflies and rainbows in here. So I'm going to give that the space to feel whatever it is that comes through. So when it comes to like even my personal practice with yoga, with meditation, with all the 100 things that I enjoy exploring throughout my week, there are quite a few, I really do it intuitively instead of showing up and be like, I have to do this rigid routine every single day, which is absolutely baloney. Can help some people, especially if you're building routines. And it's baloney for myself because I, as a very fluid and free human, need, yes, the structure, like I said before, but I also need the freedom. So what I've learned through cyclical living is that it is a very much, it's a curiosity practice. How am I doing today? What does my body need today? What does my mind need today? What does my soul need today? And that's how I show up. So even today, I didn't do any sort of deep physical movement. I did a few cat cows in the morning. I did a few down dogs. I did some kriyas, some pranayama, some breath, and a short meditation. That was perfect for me today. Now, if you check in with me a few weeks later, maybe I'll be doing an hour-long asana practice and a 30-minute meditation because my capacity is different. So it is very, very intuitive, and it's because I've learned more about myself when studying cyclical living, and just learning more about how the body shifts dramatically during these different phases of our moon cycle.
Listening to you speak, my heart opens up because it's so beautiful to allow that process and accepting that we are in a feminine body, and
Mm-hmm.
and to understand it and to take care of it. And it's precious and it's frustrating, yes, because we were raised in the like you mentioned, the masculine, which is renovating every 24 hours. Even how
Right.
they process alcohol or sugar is different than us. And
Yeah.
so yeah, to compare ourselves to that is like comparing the moon and the sun. And
Right.
so
Well, and it's
yeah.
something that too I've noticed for myself is I used to try so hard to be in my masculine. Granted, this is a whole other conversation. It's intertwined to my sexuality and discovering that side of myself. Um, but I used to try so hard. I would dress masculine. I was like it was a very short-lived phase because I think I quickly realized like, oh, heck no, that is not me. But I tried, right? And I tried to move from that space and I quickly burnt out. I quickly was like, this is not feasible for who I am. And I am a very feminine person. I think we all have both and we all need both. And I was so shut off from my femininity and living through that feminine lens. So it has been a reclamation of self to study cyclical living and to really realize that, yes, we are vastly different in our biology, man versus woman and whatnot. And I also like this idea of the gray space because I think there's an opportunity to have both, right? To have our masculinity and our femininity work together. And, there's no right or wrong way to experience that, especially as we get into a deeper conversation of, the LGBTQ plus community and all of that and beyond. But yeah, I think it can be so transformative and supportive to just understand your own biology and to understand how to best support it and to know that it's going to look vastly different from the next person, even another female or another woman who's going through their cycle, right? Different ages, different races, everything, different orientations, like it all is going to impact how you relate to yourself and show up for yourself in all of the phases of our flow, but also the phases of life and these inner and outer seasons that are constantly unraveling.
One of the things I was going to say about the future and yoga, I met with someone recently last year that she's like, so how do you see your life in 5, 10 years? And one of the ways I answered that in the moment was I stopped planning in a way of how I see myself, because what happened is like today I'm a yoga teacher and I never imagined in my whole entire life that I was going to be a yoga teacher. And I think that surprised me so much, and many other things that have surprised me in the past 5 years since I seen her, that I just want a feeling. So if I project my future, what I see many things, but what I feel is a feeling. It's different feelings, and that's what I want to project for the future. So I can relate to what you're saying,
Yeah.
because then life surprises you in such a beautiful, beautiful way.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Have you ever heard of the book, The Desire Map?
Yes, but I did it
Yeah.
so long ago. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay.
I was going to say that book is huge. I
Thanks.
actually have it right here. By Danielle Laporte. Yeah, that book is so good. It really enhances what you're talking about, or rather it just goes in depth, right, to that idea that when we're manifesting or talking about our futures based off of what we think versus what we feel, it's a totally different experience. And I mean, that's manifesting not just in 5 years, but like the next week, right? If you're manifesting for next week, right? Instead of when I manifest in the morning and I'm doing like any sort of ritual, it's not like, okay, how do I want to think about myself in the future? It's like, how do I want to feel, right? How does that, even, imagery can be so huge. We call it bhavana in yoga. It's this manifestation, visualization practice. And it's so, so important to tune into how do I want to feel? And imagery can be attached to that to help enhance the feeling. And what you attract might not necessarily be what the imagery is, but rather what the feeling and the vibrational frequency that you brought yourself up to. And that's what, when we talk about like law of attraction and law of assumption and all of that, it's very much connected to vibration. Yeah, it's a really good book, and it really touches on that idea in a profound way. I love that.
I was reading about the phases through Kate Murphy, which is someone that talks about business and cyclical living. And one of the things she says is that in the follicular phase is an amazing phase for vision, for like vision boards and like that type of thing. So even our faces help us.
Yeah, hugely. I literally have a book that is, I call it my manifesting journal. So I only use it. I don't journal in it like daily. It's only when I'm in my manifesting mode. So it's something that mostly comes out actually in the follicular and the ovulatory phase. And I've had some fun experiences with it where it just becomes this like super creative act of self-love. And I'll be with my friends, even me and one of my best friends, we were like playing music, had incense going, just like the whole vibes, dancing around. And then I would just, cut out little pictures, put stuff in my book. So it really is, it's something that cyclically we have more access to that power and to that, to the ability to envision with more clarity and more ease in our follicular and ovulatory phase, because energetically we are there, right? Versus the luteal and the menstrual phase. It's much more of a inward, slowing down, grounding, detoxifying, letting go practice.
How fun. You made it fun. Now I want to do that. I can't wait.
I recommend it for sure.
Thank you. And so last question, and you can like expand as much as you want. And I want to know, like, how can people work with you? You mentioned that you have several jobs right now, like working on different things, and you're also very active in Instagram, and I love how you share your stories. And I know it takes a lot to do it, discipline, but also, confidence in it, or showing up as yourself to be able to spread the love and the message you're sharing today. And so, I would love to know more about that.
Yeah. So as for working with me, I have a few different outlets right now. The one that I am really excited about is life coaching. So I'm a certified life coach. I've been doing that for a little over maybe 2 years now. And that's been a really, really fun outlet to work with people through. I offer, it's kind of a fusion. So I have been studying yoga and teaching yoga for almost 6 years now, studying it for longer, but teaching it for about 6 years. And I'll integrate a lot of yoga into my life coaching stuff and the things that I do with my clients. But beyond that, I've been studying yoga therapy for the last 2.5 years. And so yoga therapy is 1,000 hours of training that is typically spread out over 2 to 3 years. So my program is a 3-year program, and I'm finishing out this last year of my certification for that. And that's been huge because a lot of the clients that I work with now are integrated into all of the different spheres that I work through. So menstrual cycle coaching, life coaching, yoga therapy, yoga in general. They are very much blended together. So I have clients who just come to see me for yoga privates or breathwork privates or meditation privates. And then I have clients who are full time in a coaching program with me. And it's very much unique to what each person needs. So I meet every single person exactly where they need to be. So I had one client who's in Australia, one client who's in Mexico, one client who's actually a few clients in the US, because that's where I'm based, but just really all over the world, which is like the most incredible part about life coaching, is seeing these transformations that people are really cultivating for themselves happening in different cultures, in different time zones, in different places. So I work with people from all over. And it's a really integrated experience of blending all of those tools and philosophies together. And outside of that, I have a few other things that I do online. I really want to start developing courses, and I'm in the process of possibly developing a chakra course. So that will be something that once that is developed, I'll share it through Growth of Mind, which is my social media. But yeah, really the way that I work with most people right now is online through coaching and yoga therapy. And then I teach a lot in person. I'm also on social media doing a lot of different social media gigs. So there's a lot of different outlets that are happening all at once, that come together in the same kind of breath of connection, love, spirituality, yoga, and creativity.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. And I don't know how you do it, but you do it.
Yes, today's a fun day. I go from about now until 8:15 p.m. So my days can be really full, but that goes back to the conversation on cyclical living. I have the capacity for it, this week. Next week's going to look vastly different than this week. So yeah, it's fun. It's a fun journey for sure.
It is. Thank you for sharing with us
Yeah.
today with me. Yeah. We're blessed to have you here. And so beautiful, so beautiful. And I'll have all your information in the show notes.
Beautiful.
Gracias, Hannah.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Space Whispers. Thank you for spending time with me today. Your host, Rainy, on the Space Whispering podcast. I hope today's episode gave you something to reflect on, inspire you, or energize you to create something beautiful. Help us grow this soulful community and spread the love by subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing this episode with your community. If you're feeling called to transform your inner or outer spaces into a true reflection of you, let's connect. Schedule a discovery session with me at rainy.co or Instagram rainy_. What soulful actions will you take today? Keep listening to the whispers of creation and let your soul's magic flow into the world. See you soon. Besitos.